Now, as you might have gathered from my Comic Connection announcements, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I want to share with you a little bit of my nerdiness this morning. And for those of you where this is like a little bit of a bridge too far, stay with me. Stay with me here, okay? I'm sure we'll find some common ground, okay? Right, right. If superheroes aren't your thing, like maybe do some translation work in your mind. You know, spy thriller, western, if that's your thing. I don't know, something. But I love a good heroic story. And for me, the most compelling heroes, the ones that I want to just follow along on a journey, see where they end up, are the ones who fall short, the ones who fail, the ones who don't fit in, and they keep going. They just keep trying to move forward. Like Aquaman, yeah. Aquaman for a fish out of water story. He could talk to fish. What else would you want to do? Yeah. Spider-Man, I love, and I'm glad to hear the excitement from the room, from Wendy, because I'm not the only one. I love Spider-Man. Max, I know you're with me on this. I love Spider-Man because he gets anxious, he has regrets, you know, he's fallen down more times than you can count, and he still keeps trying. He still gets up and he keeps trying, you know. We have a wonderful plethora of characters that you can look at and be like, I don't even want to have a beer with them. I don't want to have a cup of coffee with them. But they're still heroes. Iron Man, most of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor and or Loki. It depends on where you're following Loki on his journey.
Batman, if we're being really honest.
Batman, you know, I would love to have a cup of coffee with Robin, but not Batman. Batman would just not be any fun. But yeah, but all of these guys here, I mean, they have some moral failings. They fall down. They make mistakes. They're kind of jerks. But they're trying. They're trying. And I love that for them. And I love that for us who get to follow their journeys. The Bible's also filled with characters like that too. At least, you know, characters I tend to gravitate towards. And one of them is Peter. And that's who we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the end of Peter's story in the book of John. Now, a few weeks ago, we were talking about the Last Supper. Jesus is dining with his disciples after having washed all of their feet. Peter has this really like compelling moments where like he doesn't get what's happening, but he's so endearing. You know, Jesus is like, you have to let me wash your feet, Peter. I want to include you in all of this. And he's like, well, then wash all of me. And he's like, well, I don't need to, though. I don't need to wash all of you. Your feet's dirty, and I want to take care of your feet. Oh, okay. And then Jesus says, like, hey, I'm going to be arrested, and y'all are going to abandon me. One of you is going to betray me. And Peter's like, well, not me. He's like, well, you're going to say you don't even know me 3 times. Well, no, that doesn't sound like me. Maybe one of these other guys, but not me. And then after Jesus gets arrested, all of the male disciples abandon him, with the exception of the beloved disciple, who I think is Lazarus. That's a debated topic. And Peter does indeed deny knowing Jesus 3 times. He follows behind. He wants to be with Jesus, but he's so scared. He's understandably terrified. And he realizes after the 3rd time he denies knowing Jesus what he's done. And it wrecks him. He just weeps. You can just imagine how much shame he's filled with. I mean, he's Peter, the rock. He was given that special name from Jesus. But he's not acting like the rock right now. He's terrified. It's like a shaky branch. And then he goes on to hide with all of the disciples after Jesus dies. And we get to the stories we talked about last week and the week before. You know, when Mary's like, hey, the tomb's empty, Peter and the disciple Jesus loves, I think Lazarus, run over to the tomb. Again, we see how excited Peter is. He loses the race, but that doesn't matter. And then later, Jesus appears to him in a room full of disciples, 2 different occasions. And Jesus both times says, peace be with you, showing that they're reconciled. And what I didn't mention last week is the book concludes. And then we've got another chapter, which is really interesting. The book just kind of winds up and it's like, well, that's the story of Jesus, and we wanted to share all of this with you because not enough of this has been said already. We wanted to make sure you had the best take, and this is it. And then someone along the way, maybe it's the same writer later, who's like, I got to put more in here. I think it's probably another writer comes along, they say, that's not the most satisfying conclusion. Something's missing here. You know what it is? We need more Peter. So, Peter, after the 2 other appearances, after Jesus at this point has shared God's Spirit with them, so they're also avatars of God's Spirit now. They also carry God's Spirit with them, just like Jesus was doing. After he calls them siblings, he gets together some of the other disciples and they go fishing, which was Peter's trade before, and a few of the other disciples. Now, I don't know if Peter is officially turning his back on his calling at this point, or if they just need some extra cash, and this is the trade he knows, or if he's just flirting with the idea. I think our writer wants us to see he's in a dangerous spot, though, because he keeps getting referred to as Simon, the name he had before Jesus called him Peter. You might remember what Rita just read. Even Jesus refers to him as Simon Peter, not just Peter. And they're out there fishing, and it's a long, dark night, just like it was a long, dark night when Mary came to the tomb, right? This is a hard moment. This is a spiritual night as much as a physical night. And he is working really hard. He's stripped down to his underoos because that's how you fish. You don't want to get all of your clothes wet fishing. And they're deeply unsuccessful. They're fishing all night long. They don't catch a thing. And then dawn starts breaking in. And there's a figure out in the distance. And the figure says, hey, throw your net overboard now. Try it now. And they do. And it immediately fills up with fish. And it starts breaking as they pull it in, just exploding from all the fish they're pulling in. And they realize, well, this is a miraculous catch of fish. And Peter, even though he can't quite make out the physical characteristics of this gentleman, knows that's Jesus. That's Jesus. He's come to visit us again. And in his excitement, this is another really cute Peter moment. He puts on all of his clothes and jumps right into the water. All right. Okay. Well, you got to put the you got to put the clothes on. You want to be proper when you go see Jesus. But you just okay. You're gonna swim in those. All right. It's fine. It's fine, everybody. And they get over to Jesus. They catch up, and by the time they get there, Jesus has prepared a fish barbecue for them. He brought bread, and he's cooked them all breakfast. Now, in the ancient world, sharing a table with somebody was a sign of peace, a sign of good relationship, a sign of hospitality. You didn't often share a table with enemies because that's a pretty dangerous place to eat. This is another way I think Jesus is trying to communicate. Peace be with you. We're at peace. But he takes Peter aside for a special conversation. And he says to Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And Peter responds, I do. You know I do. He does this 3 times, and the last time is kind of devastating. It hurts his heart. And that's all significant. But the original language, Jesus says, Simon, son of Jonah, do you agape love me? Do you love me with the kind of love that you have reserved for the folks that you would lay your life down for? And Peter responds, Jesus, I phileo love you. I love you like a brother. I love you like a best friend. And I think our writer's trying to communicate that, yeah, Peter loves Jesus, but it's not quite the same love. Maybe it's a deficient love. Maybe it's an incomplete love. And each time when Peter responds, you know I love you, Jesus says, feed my sheep. Feed my lambs. Take care of the community, is what he's saying. Take care of the folks that have formed around us, this beloved community that we've nurtured. So in a single morning, we have Peter, who's flirting with leaving this life that he's been called to, who's been so filled with shame. He was weeping a few days earlier and now is on a fishing boat, being called Simon, his previous identity. And Jesus is trusting him. Simon Peter, filled with shame. Simon Peter, with his insufficient love, being offered and trusted with the care of the beloved community. And I resonate with this story. I resonate with this because I see some of Simon Peter in me. I see some of Simon Peter in most of us. We fall short. We have done things we're ashamed of, things that have crushed us, things that have wrecked us. We've hurt people we care about. And yet, in spite of falling down, God has continued to trust us with this work of caring for one another, for caring for community, of feeding the sheep. Not that I would ever call you all a sheep, Never. But you get the metaphor. And I hope that gives us something to hold on to the next time we're confronted with that feeling of inadequacy, that feeling of worthlessness, that lie that we are defined by our greatest mistakes. To know that the God who loves us, the God who fills us, the God that we're avatars of, trusts us to keep showing up for God's beloveds. For those of us in this room, those of us in our families, those of us far, far, far beyond these walls. God keeps on trusting us. So we can keep getting up. We can keep moving forward. We can keep feeding and tending to the sheep, our relationships with imperfect love.